AITA for telling my father and stepmother that I'll exchange the gift they bought for my daughter. My daughter is turning 5 later this month. We have a trip coming up, so we decided to have her birthday party last Saturday instead. When we got home after the party, we helped our daughter open her gifts. The only ones she didn't open were the ones we realized were jewelry or clothing. She doesn't care about those, only the toys, which me and my husband opened without her. Those were gifted mostly by family members. The jewelry department mainly consisted of necklaces and bracelets. The sole exception was a pair of earrings, gifted by my father and his wife. My daughter's ears aren't pierced. We didn't pierce them when she was born, nor do we intend to do so anytime soon. We want to let her decide whether she wants to, and she's never expressed any interest. So me and my husband already knew we'd be exchanging the earrings. Usually, we don't tell people we're exchanging a gift they bought for us. This time is different. My stepmother has been pestering me about piercing my daughter's ears since she was born. There's always a different reason why. First, it was because people wouldn't know she was a girl if we didn't. Then it turned into she'll get jealous of her friends, and so on. But she always makes the point that girls need to have their ears pierced. She brings it up almost every time we see her. My father usually doesn't comment on it, but has backed her up a few times. Also, my stepmother's never complained about my older son's appearance, so I know this is rooted in sexism. When my father called us the next day to ask what we thought of the earrings, I told him they looked nice. My stepmother joined in and asked, "So you're getting her ears pierced?" I tried to dodge the question, but she later asked it again, so I told them no. I looked at the store's website and found a matching necklace, which we'll exchange the earrings for. There's a price difference, but I'll cover it. Well, they weren't happy. Apparently, my stepmother started crying. My father told me off for thinking about exchanging a thoughtful gift he bought for his granddaughter, and said it was wrong of me to dismiss my stepmother's opinion like that. In return, I told them I couldn't take her insistence anymore, and she needed to stop obsessing over my daughter's ears. It escalated into a fight. My husband, while 100 on my side otherwise, thinks I didn't need to tell them. AITA X200B at the party took place at a kids' party venue, not at our home. We're not from the US, and it's not common to open gifts in front of guests around here. Update AITA for telling my father and stepmother that I'll exchange the gift they bought for my daughter. I want to thank everyone who commented on my previous post. A few days after I wrote, I called my father. I told him that both him and his wife were out of line, and that any further attempts to overrule my and my husband's parenting will have consequences. We're both more than willing to limit their contact with our children if they don't stay in their lane. We did end up fighting about it, but I put my foot down. Eventually, my father agreed. A few days later, he sent me an apology via text and offered to cover the price difference between the earrings and the necklace. I declined. I also discussed the situation with my husband. We both agreed to check whatever gifts our kids get from my father and his wife in the future. Better safe than sorry. My husband and I exchanged the earrings for the matching necklace during the weekend. Our girl loved it. We filmed her wearing it and thanking my father and his wife, and sent them the video. My father sent us an audio "You're welcome, honey, I love you," etc. In response, my stepmother didn't reply, nor do I expect her to. Also, you guys are absolutely right, there's no way in hell either of them are ever babysitting my kids. But yeah, I think this is over. Thank you for reassuring me that I was right to hold my ground. AITA for giving my wedding guests a dress code. I have 29 am getting married to my partner. I'm 30 and we have planned a fantasy renaissance themed wedding. We are massive fandom nerds, books, video games, movies, comics etc. and actually met at a Ren fair and wanted that to be part of our wedding. We discussed it with our close friends and everyone thought it was a great idea. So we sent out the invitations plus an attached letter that explained why we wanted to have a themed wedding. And examples of the type of things we wanted people to wear. Just Google Ren fair if you want to see. We included photos, descriptions, budget categories that went from how to DIY a costume using old thrifted clothes to just straight out buying something online. We also asked people to reach out if they had any worries so we could work something out. I have received a few messages from my closer friends saying they've heard other people, including some me and my partner's family members, calling me a bridezilla, saying we are being unreasonable, that this is ridiculous, that they don't want to go if I'm going to get all up in arms over clothing. My soon-to-be MILF 59 and SIL F26 is especially pissed. I reached out to them after their names were mentioned and they said I am ruining what is supposed to be happy day by demanding people dress up like idiots. They said everyone should be allowed to dress in what makes them feel comfortable and I am being very controlling. My partner says not to listen to them, but there are so many people saying it. I'm feeling pretty hurt by all this. I assumed people would react like this if I said everyone needed to go out and spend hundreds on costumes, but we went out of our way to include pictures and suggest as many very low budget options as possible. I honestly didn't think it was a big deal, but now I am having second thoughts about the whole theme wedding idea. Am I the asshole? Edit 2. We put in the invitation we don't expect or want people to buy us wedding gifts and would rather they keep their money for themselves or use it for their outfit. Edit. One of the low budget options was things like a normal floral spring summer dress many people would already own, with the addition of like a flower crown or belt or something. It went up from there. For more masculine stuff it was like a linen shirt with a piece of fabric tied around your waist or a belt. It's quite low-key and I'm not super strict about it, just not things like a cocktail dress or a bodycon dress or a formal suit and tie. Also just going to add, excluding Sil and Mill, our closest family and friends haven't complained and several people have said they are looking forward to it. It is more so cousins, aunts, uncles or those sort of level friends. They have also not directly contacted us with their concerns and we are hearing it through the grapevine. Wibta. If I tell my friend her son is not welcome to stay in my house unless he is responsible for himself. For context, my F31 best friend F31 is a single mom of a 14-year-old boy. She has low contact with her parents because they kicked her out when she got pregnant in high school, so she doesn't have a big support system. We are really close and I've always done what I could to help her. Her son is my nephew, not in blood, but is my nephew, not in blood, but in every way that counts. She does everything for her son. I mean everything. He doesn't even pick up his plate from the table after he finishes eating. She does it for him. While I personally don't think this is a good way to raise a child, I never gave her my opinion. She never asked for it. It's not my business how she decided to raise her child and I'm not a mom, so how can I give parenting advice? Last week my friend had to take a two business trip and had another one scheduled for next week. She asked me if her son could stay at my house the days she is out of town, because she doesn't feel comfortable leaving him alone in their house. I agreed and he stayed with me for 2 days last week. The 2 days were a frustrating experience for the both of us because he kept expecting me to do everything for him, including packing his bag for school, picking up his clothes whenever he dropped them, serving him cereal in the morning, washing his dishes, and waking him up in the morning to go to school. He even blamed me because he missed the school bus because I didn't make sure he woke up after his alarm rang. I heard his alarm and assumed he was awake. I'm not eager to repeat this experience. I love that child but he is too old for this, I think. Besides, he have a demanding job. I don't have time or energy to be the maid babysitter of a teenage boy even if it's just 2 days. I'm thinking about telling my friend that if she wants her son to stay with me next week he has to be responsible for himself. I can promise to cook him 3 meals a day, and I can make sure he is up for school, but he needs to pick up his own clothes, pack his own bags, and wash his own dishes, otherwise he cannot stay. I don't feel this is unreasonable, but I feel kinda bad putting these conditions because she doesn't have a big support system, and if I don't let him stay at my house it'll be really hard for her to find somewhere else to drop him off. Wibta. AITA. For not giving my roommate a tampon and telling her she can no longer use anything I own. This is such a stupid post and I'm still so embarrassed and flabbergasted that this even happened to begin with. For context, I 25F live with roommates. All are female. We've all gotten close in the 2 years we've lived together, except for one roommate. We'll call her Emma, 23. It's not that I dislike Emma, but we've never meshed as well as my other roommates have. The other day, Emma called us all out to the living room where she was folding her laundry. She held up a pair of underwear and asked if it belonged to any of us, and I recognized them as mine, so I said yes. I apologized for the mix-up, and she immediately started yelling at me about how disgusting I am and how she wanted to light herself on fire after touching them. Since I live with all girls, this happens all the time and none of us ever get weirded out by it. I can't even begin to count how many times someone's bras, socks, underwear, etc. have gotten mixed with my laundry by mistake. It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I realized they were actually an old pair of period underwear that had, I cannot stress this enough, minor blood stains on them from years ago when I first got my period. Emma again decided to loudly announce how gross she thought I was and how I should be ashamed for not throwing them out, and tried to get my other roommates to look and join in on her outburst. Thankfully I live with some awesome girls, so nobody even batted an eye despite me being absolutely horrified that someone I live with would do something like that. Everyone was quick to reassure me that it's no big deal and it happens to all of us. They tried to tell Emma to chill out but she wasn't having it. She just went to her room and slammed the door. For the next week, Emma didn't speak to me. She would loudly talk to all of our other roommates with no problem, but the minute I tried speaking to her she would just walk away. A couple days ago I was laying in bed and Emma was the only other person home. She knocked on my door and when I opened it, she sheepishly asked me for a tampon, saying she woke up from a nap and bled through her shorts. How ironic. I laughed and told her no, I didn't have any left, and I knew our other roommates had some somewhere, so it's not like she had nothing. Yesterday, She asked all of us if she could borrow a shirt because her clothes were in the washer. We all said no, and I even said I wouldn't want her to light herself on fire after touching any of my nasty stuff. She rolled her eyes and gave me a half-assed apology, and I told her I don't want her touching or borrowing my stuff if that's the way she acts about a natural bodily function that she also goes through. She called me childish and said she didn't see the big deal. Now there's this weird, passive-aggressive vibe every time we're in the same room, and I'm wondering if I should just apologize or not. I talked to some friends, and they said I've got nothing to apologize for, but I'm wondering if I overreacted. So AITA added, good lord, since so many people are seemingly so fascinated by my so-called impossible pair of underwear that are over 10 years old, let me say this here instead of saying the same thing 10 times over in the comments like I have been. My mom bought them for me when I was like 14 and they ended up being way too big for me, so I only wore them in times of desperation until recent years. Never thought I'd have to explain my underwear to hundreds of strangers on the internet, but there's a first time for everything, I suppose. AITA for refusing to buy my nephew a Christmas present, throwaway because I have family on here. So, recently myself and my husband mid-30s have decided we do not want to do holidays. No Valentine's, Easter, Christmas. We both feel they're a waste. We're not religious, and feel all the holidays are as companies. And now societal pressure forcing people to feel obligated to buy things. We informed my family that we won't be doing Christmas this year. Explained it's pointless to spend money trying guess what X, Y and Z want, and X, Y, Z spending money trying figure what we want, when we could all just buy our own things and be happy with what we have. I mean, if it's cheap enough to be got as a gift and I want it, I'll have bought it for myself anyway. By the end, you've all spent money you can barely afford, and all got a bunch of stuff that 90% of the time will be chocolate, bath sets, or random stuff sent to charity because it doesn't really have a place or use for you, and the companies are laughing their butts off at us all. For the most part, my family seemed okay with it. A few days later, my mother rang me. She said she'd been thinking about this whole no Christmas thing, and asked that surely we'd still be getting something for my nephew. I said no, we're not doing Christmas. We're fine with meeting up for celebratory meals and spending time together, etc., because that's family time, and we feel we should do it more often, but that we can't get behind the whole gifting thing. She said she thinks I'm wrong to take that stance, that I'm being mean and unloving to my nephew. She says as he'll be 4 by Christmas, he'll be upset that I didn't get him anything and think I don't like him. I explained that many children don't get things for Christmas. Some don't celebrate for religion reasons, some have parents who can't afford, etc., and that I buy him things all the time. I just don't feel I should get him something just because it's expected. I also said if he will be upset, angry and think I don't like him, that's a parenting issue, not a me issue, because he should be taught that presents aren't everything and to be thankful for what I do get him. She's been in a mood with me for a few days now, and shows no signs of letting up. She's intentionally being cold to me and my husband, in the hopes it'll get us to change our mind. ETA, since I'm having to repeat myself on this. Money isn't the issue. Yes, I buy him things. I just feel it's more heartfelt to buy him things as and when, rather than one thing lost in a pile on a certain day. Much prefer his smile at a random gift than his smiles rolled into one day. His mother agrees. She says he gets so much on Christmas she struggles to organize it all anyway. It's just my mother with the issue. Also, gifts aren't given by hand at Christmas in my family. They are all put into a pile for him. He has no idea who gives him what, and won't. No, I didn't get him anything unless specifically pointed out. All he sees is a large pile of gifts. Second edit, I won't be seeing him or any of the family on Christmas. My family have one large extended family meal around the end of November. We do not get together otherwise. I have tried in past years to get meet-ups and activities together going, but to no avail. We spend Christmas in our own homes. AITA for describing my mom's second marriage and her younger kids as her do-over family. I 17 I've lost my dad when I was 5. My parents were married, but I remember dad being more present in my early memories than mom, and when my dad died, I know my mom wasn't there for me. She left me to raise myself, or she roped in some extended family to take care of me, usually grandparents. But she wouldn't always do that, and I was sort of forced to become independent and more mature in some ways to raise myself. Like I had to make sure I ate, did homework, got to school on time, all without my mom helping me. The most she'd do is make some food, but she wouldn't even tell me she had. I usually had to search the fridge to find it. My grandparents were the ones who celebrated my birthdays with me, and they were the ones who typically went to my school for parent conferences. My mom doesn't know me. She couldn't tell you what classes I take in high school, what my favorite food or color is, who my friends and best friends are, nothing. 5 years ago she met her husband Sam, and pretty quickly, like before they were living together, My mom got pregnant. So Sam moved in and my mom married him. Her was born 4 years ago and her son followed along 2 years ago. And right away I see the difference in how my mom is with them. She knows them, she loves them, she dedicates time to them, she advocates for them. All the things I do not remember her ever doing for me. She eats with them and plays with them and she takes her daughter to preschool every day and takes her for a treat after. It sucks to see. I didn't get a good mom but I see she had her in it to be a good mom and chose not to be. Sam isn't as good as my dad was though, but he's still better than my mom ever was to me. Last week my mom asked me to babysit for her and Sam and I said no. My mom was shocked and asked me why I wouldn't babysit. I told her I had work and I had plans with friends. She told me she would have expected me to want time with the kids. I told her I don't want time with her do-over family. She asked me what that meant and I said, Sam and the kids are her do-over family. She is a better mom to her younger kids and she and Sam have created their own perfect little family with them and their kids, but she was never that for me. I told her I have zero interest in helping her out with the do-over family and I pointed out that it was the most she had said to me in years, because she normally doesn't talk to me or include me in anything and the only reason she was speaking to me is she wanted something. She was all how dare you say that about Sam and the kids and she told me I had an awful attitude and she hopes the kids never pick up on how I feel about them and their dad. She told me they deserve better than being described that way and she told me I had some nerve to be jealous that her kids have a happy family life. I laughed and told her she only cared about them and that was clear. She called me a nasty little bitch. AITA won't stop calling me to collect someone else's debt? How would you like their new phone and address? Oopsie, hung up on ya. A tale as old as time. You get a new phone, and it blows up with calls from debt collectors. Most people can just send unknown callers to voicemail. I, unfortunately, worked tech support for a large company at the time, so I had to answer every call. I'll spare you the details of how annoying those folks are. Very should suffice. And I got tired of it pretty darn quick. I put up with it as long as I could, but then something broke. I needed to fuck with these assholes, and as much as it was possible and legal to do so, mostly, I just wasted as much of their time as I could. But for the really annoying ones, I had a routine that I developed over the course of about a year. This is my petty revenge, in the form of a dialogue. Dunner, is this Joe Debtor? Me, is this about the unpaid phone bill from 2010? Dunner, yes. Mr. Debtor, are you going to pay me? Hang on a second. I never said I was your dude. I work with him, though. He sold me this phone a couple of weeks ago and told me I might be getting a few of these calls. Listen, could you please just call him directly? I can give you his new address and phone number, and the phone for our HR department if you want that too. Dunner, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Me, are you ready to write this down? It's click. Invariably, they'd call back thinking I had just accidentally disconnected. I'd say something like, sorry, cell coverage sucks around here. I apologize. Do you still want me to click? You'd be surprised how many times they'd try again. I answered and pretended to accidentally hang up every single time. They all eventually figured it out, not before getting really angry though. Hubby's ex got what she deserved. First time posting and not 100 sure if this fits here, but here we go. Hubby and I are both in our 50s, so this happened many years ago. Hubby and his ex started dating at 18, married at 21 and separated at 22 after. She started cheating on him and decided she didn't want to be married to him anymore. He was devastated and let her pack up all of their shared belongings and moved back in with his parents and stacked all of the boxes in their garage. I started dating hubby when he was 28, about 3 years after his divorce was finalized. I graduated from college the following year and got my first big girl job and was excited to have my first apartment, but was concerned about having to go buy a bunch of kitchen things. Hubby was like, I have a bunch of boxes in the garage, let's go through them and you can see if there is anything in there you need. So he starts opening boxes, and I'm getting a nice little pile of things for my apartment, and suddenly he starts laughing and pulling all these newspaper wrapped items out of a box. The more he pulls out, the harder he laughs. When he catches his breath, he says, well, I guess her china teacup collection is useless without all of the saucers. His ex had given him an entire box of carefully wrapped saucers, and she obviously had the box of equally carefully wrapped teacups. We took the teacup-less saucers to a second-hand store and he chuckled about her screw-up at random times for weeks. My friend called me trashy for having sex with my husband in my own home. Me 25F and 20 weeks pregnant and my husband 23 meters decided to have some sexy time since he's been stressed from work lately. He's an IT in the Navy. So we go upstairs to our room in our house and have sex. The only thing is, I didn't realize our window was open, and our friends G and E, for reference, were walking past our house while we were going at it. So instead of texting us, "Hey, your window is open," they call our other friends Y and C who live down the street and tell them to tell us that our window was open. Like, why don't you just tell the whole damn neighborhood at that point? So Y calls and says that it was trashy to have sex with open windows, which I didn't realize were open. I tell her that babies don't come from storks, and to mind her business. Anyway, I just wanted to vent. Thanks for reading. AITA for not letting my wife stay home, even though I promised her. We've been married for about 5 years. I've told my wife in the past that once I could afford it, I wouldn't mind if she stayed home and had a more relaxed life while I took care of us financially. I do still agree with that. But post-COVID inflation along with some career setbacks for me, trouble finding a job out of college, layoffs have made this a more difficult milestone than I originally expected, as well as additional financial knowledge and experience that I didn't have earlier in our relationship. Things have improved as of late, with a raise and a promotion at my current company. I'm still not where I expected to be by now, but I'm headed in the right direction. I remarked to my wife that I was now making enough to cover our needs in case something happened with her job, so we could breathe a little easier. She smiled and said that she would give them her notice next week. I was confused and asked her why. She said, "Well, you told me I could stay home once we could afford it. We can now." I kind of laughed awkwardly and clarified, "I meant that I could afford food, mortgage, utilities, the basics, not anything else." "Right, that's all we need. We can afford me not working anymore." This is our big disagreement. To her and probably many others, afford simply means being able to pay the bills day to day. Are the lights on? Is there food in the pantry? Are we being foreclosed? All good then. To me, afford means being truly sustainable in the long term, covering needs easily with enough left over to have fun, take vacations, save for emergencies, invest for retirement, etc. We're about there now with both of us working, but for me to cover all of that I would need to earn about twice what I do currently. I explained this to her, and laid out the numbers of when she would be able to stay home. She's not happy. She thinks I'm being too conservative and money-centric. I think she's being short-sighted and, frankly, ignorant of current economic conditions. To be fair, I've made it easy for her to be ignorant. She hasn't paid a bill, done taxes, or gone to the grocery store in 5 years. She's joined on all of our accounts, and I keep fairly comprehensive budgets, expenses in a shared Google sheet. She just chooses not to look at them. She said that she's ready to be done working soon, and that I promised her. I said that her getting to stay home wasn't an oath in court. It was just something I said I would be okay with if it made sense. I'd love to double my salary soon. If it happens, great. But it is by no means guaranteed, and I'm not going to stress myself out too much to do her this favor. And it absolutely would be a favor. Her taking care of our small suburban home with no kids would essentially mean she was retired early. I'd feel good to do that for my wife, but this entitled behavior has me second guessing it entirely. X200B AITA? AITA for not wearing a bra at my home. I 16F don't wear a bra at home because earlier it caused problems in my chest and pain. So this started 2 days ago when I came out of the shower and my mom saw me and started to question me why I was not wearing a bra. I was a little shocked at once because she was the one who told me not to wear a bra. She told that my brother and father also live here and they might be uncomfortable. My father and brother never had any problem about me not wearing a bra. I always have a bra on when I go out. My boobs aren't even that huge that it would be noticeable even if I'm wearing a bra, or even has problems when I wear a crop top or shorts. So am I the a-hole? AITA for ruining at a family dinner because of my golden child sister. I F17 have a younger sister, Emily F16. Even though they don't say it explicitly, Emily is clearly my parents' favorite child. I can understand why they're proud of Emily. She is a straight A student, has the lead roles in student theater, swims competitively, is popular at school, and very good looking. I, on the other hand, am probably more plain. I work hard at school, but I'm not as outgoing or intelligent as Emily, and don't excel at any extracurriculars like she does. My parents always celebrate Emily. We have certificates of her work on the fridge, always have outings and meals to commemorate her achievements, and attend all her swim events and plays. I know my parents love me, but I don't get close to the level of attention, even when I work hard. The other night, we went out with my parents, uncle, aunt, and cousins. We'd just been to one of Emily's shows, and she recently got accepted onto a summer scheme she was wanting to complete. The whole meal revolved around discussing Emily and how proud everyone was of her accomplishments. I don't think I was mentioned once. I'm usually more reserved or just bite my tongue, but midway through the meal I shouted out, "Maybe if you paid more attention to me and not just your golden child, you'd have more things to celebrate." Everyone just went silent, and my mom said we'd discuss this when we got home and not to ruin the meal. Emily looked shocked and close to crying. To say the rest of the meal was awkward would be putting it lightly. When we got home, My parents shouted at me for embarrassing them and said that Emily deserves to be celebrated and that if I did something that merited celebration, I would receive the same treatment. I said how unfair this was and nothing I do gets recognized regardless. Emily joined in and said she works hard and deserves to be recognized for that, and as the older sister, I should grow up and actually work for once if I want her success. I haven't spoken to Emily since then and my parents are still annoyed at me for ruining the meal. AITA for cheating my coworker out of a free meal. I 28 meters work with this woman Lydia 24F who has a very annoying habit. She has a dating profile that she uses specifically to lure guys to buying her expensive dinners at restaurants she wants to try and then ghosts them. Lydia brags about this all the time, and is never interested in actually dating, but she'll act like it to sell it. I can't stand this because it's playing with people's hearts, but Lydia thinks of it. It is a life hack to try food or drinks she otherwise couldn't afford. My friend Daniel 32 meters is also on dating sites, but for the right reasons. His late wife died a few years ago, and he's just started jumping back into the dating scene. Daniel's a very sweet guy, and I really want him to find a great lady for him. A few days ago, he texted me asking if I knew Lydia. They matched and got to talking about work, which is how he found out we worked at the same place. I told him all about Lydia's BS with the restaurant thing, and made it very clear to him he would do best to drop things with her early on. Daniel said he'd probably still do the date but ask for separate checks. Well, they went out this past weekend and on Monday Lydia came into work very upset. I asked her how her date with Daniel went, and she ripped into me, asking if I was the one who told him not to pay for her dinner. Apparently she had Daniel take her to a high-end steakhouse and she ended up splurging. She got a drink, a full entree with a side and dessert where Daniel just ordered a sandwich and salad. Her bill alone came to $70 something, and she was almost in tears at work as she didn't expect to pay for it and now her car was low on gas. I got a little upset too as she tried to use my friend as a literal meal ticket, but somehow she doesn't see it that way. Daniel told me later the date was going kind of well until he asked for separate checks, and then Lydia just got weirdly cold. So now Lydia's mad at me because I told someone about her little tactic and it backfired on her. I don't feel like I did anything wrong since it was a grieving friend I was protecting, but some other people we work with said I should have stayed out of it because it was none of my business. AITA for keeping my son up until 11 p.m. and making him go to school the next day. I 39F have a son 12 meters. My son commonly forgets to pass in his assignments and has ADHD. X200B I was looking through his classroom yesterday and found at least 10 missing assignments that were due since maybe like last week. I was absolutely pissed, so I told him that he was going to do every single assignment. X200B by the time he finished all his assignments online and all the ones that I found in his binder that were also unfinished, it was almost 11 p.m. X200B this morning, when I'm waking him and my other kid up, he thinks that he shouldn't have to go to school because he was too tired. I just told him to get up and if he had done his work he wouldn't have had to be so tired. X200B I don't work, and my husband had the day off, and after I came back from driving them to school, my husband asked me why he looked so horrible. I just told him everything that happened, and he thinks I should have just let him go later or something and said that was kinda a dick move. And for some reason he seems so mad and has just been kinda distant since. X200B I don't think it is, so I'm asking here if AITA, my husband threw all my backless dresses tops because I am too old for this shit now. I feel disrespected but everyone agrees with him. I came home from work last Monday and I found my husband spring cleaning. He had thrown away all my backless dresses and tops. Everything. I have some beautiful designer pieces in this mix. Rick Owens, Erdem, Acne Studio, Jill Sander and some HM limited editions from back in the mid to late 00s. I cried for days. I asked him why and he said that I am too old now for this shit and that it was time I dressed more modestly. I am turning 40 in June. My mom agrees with him. Basically everyone is. I cannot stand his existence close to me. I would never have dreamt about deciding anything about the way he is because he is an adult and I trust his judgment. They said it is not the same at all. I feel infantilized to a horribly painful degree. AITA for telling my brother that he shouldn't bring his wife to our dad's funeral. Throwaway and on phone. My brother has been married to his wife for 4 years. His wife, I will call her Sarah, is on the spectrum. Sarah doesn't have much of a filter. If she thinks of something she will say it. This hasn't been causing issues until this last year. If she said something that was inappropriate rude someone would correct her, usually my brother, and she would apologize. There have been a few uncomfortable situations but usually we get an apology and everyone moves on. The main problem started when dad started to go downhill. He has had many health issues before but he went really down last summer. My mom is the main caretaker of him during this time. Sarah during this time has made comments, rude inappropriate comments of him, She usually apologizes, but my mom's patient is basically dead. Many conversations were had about it. A big blow up happened at Christmas. Sarah made a comment about how he looked and how all the tubes around him remind her of a hamster. It wasn't appropriate. Yes, we all know he looks like crap, but that he is dying. My mom told her to get out of her house. She apologized, but my mom told her she never changes her behavior and her apology means shit to her. Big argument later and that relationship between them is shaky. My dad passed this week and the funeral is this weekend. My mom is a wreck and I called up my brother. I told him it would be a horrible idea to bring his wife to the funeral. If she makes an inappropriate comment at the funeral it would destroy a lot of relationship and I think mom would lose her shit. I also explained that even with your help, before it hasn't stopped her from making comments. Everyone is going to be high emotions and it would be a very bad situation. Also, she wasn't respectful when he was alive. This started an argument and he is calling me a jerk. AITA for giving him that advice. AITA for telling my husband that if he pays me my hourly rate I will do more housework. I am a steam fitter, but I've been at it for a while and I'm in supervision. With bonuses and incentives but not counting benefits I earn over $100 an hour. I also work out of town. I started doing that once the kids were old enough to take care of themselves with their dad at home. So when my youngest was in middle school and the oldest was a junior in high school, it is great. Our retirement savings are piling up and we have been able to splurge on the kids and ourselves. My husband is upset however because I decided to pay for a cleaning lady. He and I discussed it and we agreed that him and the kids didn't do a great job keeping the house clean and tidy while I was away. I hated coming home to a mess. It caused a few fights because it was like they expected me to come home and clean up after them. Having her is fantastic. I come home to a clean house and I am happier. My kids have more time to study and do extracurriculars. They still have chores and they are still expected to clean up after themselves. My husband came to me last time I was home and said we should cut back on the service when I'm home, that I should be doing more housework. He thinks that we are wasting money. I said that I work 14 days in a row and that those are 13-hour days. Yes, it is mostly paperwork, but his job as a teacher isn't much more physically challenging. I said that I could offer him two options. If he wanted, we could completely get rid of the service and him and the kids could make sure the house was in good shape when I got home. Or he could pay me my hourly rate to do extra housework when I am on my days off. He is upset with me, insists that I'm being financially manipulative. I think if he and the kids actually did what they are supposed to do when I'm away, bone of this would be an issue. AITA for serving pork dumplings, and when my sis started arguing about the recipe, telling her I know better how they are made. I 32F was born in Georgia country and have spent more than half of my life there. As I love cooking, I have also learned a lot of recipes from my grandma, including of traditional cuisine before moving overseas. A few weeks ago my in-laws have asked me if I can make some of the traditional Georgian dishes for family get-together, to which I have agreed as they wanted to try some. I have made khachapuri cheese bread, some mains with chicken and a vegetarian one, and heenkali dumplings. Now traditionally heenkali are made with a mixture of lamb, beef and pork alongside with some spices. But since there were kids present I have also made cheese ones. Now I have a so-called N36F. She doesn't eat pork, not religious, her personal choice. When I brought my dishes over just in time with all the other food being served, she took huge interest in heenkali and was asking me questions. I have warned her they contain a mix of beef and pork and have suggested her to try the cheese ones instead. To my surprise, Anne started arguing, saying my heenkali are not authentic, since they are usually made with chicken and prawn and don't have pork. I was very confused and have tried to correct her, saying she might be confusing it with some Asian dumplings, but Anne wasn't having any of it. She doubled down on the argument, demanding I remake them. Heenkali take quite a bit of time to make since they are not authentic. Here where I might be an asshole. I got upset at what Anne was saying and having everyone watching, two of us arguing, and snapped at Anne, saying I know better how they are made since I am Georgian, it is my native food, and she should stop arguing, as she was making herself look like a fool. Anne and her husband called me an asshole and demanded I apologize. My husband is on my side, but he was very confused when he arrived. He arrived after the argument due to work, as Anne was nearly bursting into tears. AITA for pissing in the sink because my roommate's girlfriend hogs the bathroom. If you have ever seen what happens in Vegas, you know exactly what I mean. It is where I got the idea. My roommate, Dave's girlfriend, Cassie, is over constantly and she hogs the bathroom every morning. I have spoken with him about it and I have brought it up to her. This is not a one-time occurrence. It seems like every time she spends the night I end up having to hold my piss until I get to work. I hate it and I'm beginning to hate her. My girlfriend and I were watching that movie the other day and it gave me the perfect solution. The only difference is that I'm classy. I move the dishes out before I piss in the kitchen sink. A couple of days ago Dave and Cassie asked me why I was piling the dirty dishes outside the sink every morning. I was honest and said that I needed to piss and that since she had locked herself in the bathroom yet again. I did what needed to be done. They both got grossed out and said I was being a disgusting pig and that an adult should be able to hold it. I said I would give a shit about her opinion as soon as she paid rent here. Dave snorted, but then he went back to looking serious. Now Dave is upset with me because Cassie won't spend the night and he hates spending the night at her place because she lives with her aunt. It's a whole thing. My girlfriend thinks it's funny but she won't take my side. She said something funny in a movie is different in real life, but she does sympathize since she also has suffered from Cassie the bathroom hog. AITA for not wanting my 29F boyfriend 24M to meet up with his female friend alone who I've never met. First, I just want to start by saying that we've been together for 2.5 years, we live together, and are very happy together. However, this female friend keeps getting in the way. It all started about a year ago when he went on a night out with a group and she was also there. He told me he was going to stay at his male friend's that night. Well, after about a week I found out he actually stayed at her house in the spare room. Naturally I was very hurt and angry and wanted to break up with him. But he assured me that their friendship is platonic, they've been friends since college and they've never fancied each other. Apparently they used to stay at each other's houses all the time in college so he didn't think it would be a big deal. But he lied about it because he knew what my reaction would be. He has since admitted this was a stupid thing for him to have done. Then, he met up with her again about a year later. I expressed how uncomfortable this made me after the last time, and asked to see their messages but he refused to show me. This time was different as they were meeting up just them. We argued for hours over it and in the end he asked her to pick him up from his nan's house, not ours, so I would not be able to meet her. I told him how dodgy this made him look and he offered to change the plans but I just said fine, go ahead. Now she has messaged again. It is always her that messages him and asks to meet up, according to him, and asked to go for a coffee on Saturday. Well, this has caused the biggest argument we've ever had, and I said to him either he brings her to meet me so I can trust them alone, or he never sees her again. He refused to both, saying she's an important friend and that I should just trust him. He thinks I'm being controlling and a psychopath. So I said he can carry on being friends with her but he will lose me, and he thinks I am the one being awkward and causing problems. I stayed at my parents last night. AITA, I am the asshole and a decade later, I'm still not sorry. This is an ancient tale of mine, but it crossed my mind this morning and felt this community might appreciate my youthful, asshole-ish decision making. I'm currently 31F, but it all started when I was 20-ish. There was a horrific, traumatic loss in my life. As I was down spiraling in grief, I moved in with my older cousin Amy, who I had generally always been close with. She had a munchkin who was almost 1 at the time. I ended up living with him for about 3 years until the night it all fell apart. At the time it all unraveled, I worked midnights. I would keep my midnight sleep schedule during the week, but would flop to a normal sleep schedule on weekends so I could spend as much time with my BF as possible, as he had to drive an hour one way just to visit weekly. Pure chaos, but I was thriving, so whatever. I survived. The night it all went down was the night I was flopping from midnight's life to the normal human sleep schedule, so I had been awake for almost 24 hours by 8 p.m. Myself, my BF, Amy's BF Steve and our mutual friend were all gathering at our place for some drinks. When Steve arrived, he took Amy so they could get a top-up of booze before we cracked anything open. They said they'd be 30 minutes tops and asked us to wait. 40 minutes went by. I texted to see how far off they were. The answer I got was vague. Whatever, Amy is weird like that sometimes. I texted again at an hour. Then 15 minutes after that, another text at an hour and a half. Always vague responses without any real information. I was getting frustrated. Again, we weren't going to start drinking until they got back. They knew this. And more importantly, Amy knew that if I didn't get some booze in me by 9:30, I'd be down for the count. I made sure to remind her of this several times. The booze was what was going to keep me conscious for the night. I'd have started drinking without her if she told me she was going to be a while, but she didn't tell me what was happening or give any indication of a time frame, even when I'd specifically asked. We just sat around, miffed, thinking Amy and Steve were right around the corner, to be back any moment. When they finally came back through the door over 2 hours later, they had Steve's dog as a surprise. I don't remember what I said, but I yelled. I was fucking furious at how inconsiderate of a decision that was, and my tired state didn't help with my emotional regulation. I mean, sure, get the dog, but tell us you'll be a bit and that we should start drinking without you, not that you'll be right back and to just wait. After the hour mark, I honestly only stayed awake to rip her a new one. She did not understand why I was so mad. We argued briefly before I just went to bed, but the argument continued the next day. During that bit, she threatened that if I left, she'd never let me see her daughter again. That was it. Decision made. I won't let you use your daughter like that with me. and I won't subject myself to that sort of manipulation. I started re-examining her past behavior as I packed and realized Amy was never a good person. She was always cruel and rude whenever the opportunity would present itself, no matter who she was speaking to. Once, at a mutual friend's birthday party, she directly told the birthday girl, who was a large woman, that she should never lose weight because then she'd be prettier than her. Similarly, she seemed very frustrated when I went through an insane fitness shape and was suddenly in better shape than her. Amy never helped with my depression or grief like I'd convinced myself she did. In fact, she pretty much flat out ignored it, even when I told her I was having thoughts. Amy was a bully, meaner than Regina George kind of bully. It wasn't the first time she showed her true colors, but it was the first time I could consciously see her for who she was. With all that and a million other consistently toxic and selfish memories ranging from childhood to adulthood, I moved out within the next 48 hours. But, here's where I become the asshole of this story. I took something that was technically not mine. It was something I'd gifted her a month before for Christmas. You see, I bought a really nice, really considerate and expensive gift for my loving, caring cousin who supported me through many trying times in my life. But while re-examining everything on that last day, I realized that Amy had none of those qualities. She wasn't nice, she was mean, she wasn't considerate, she was self-absorbed, and she was about as supportive as damp cardboard. The woman I thought Amy was never existed in the first place. Since my gift was for someone who apparently didn't exist, I fucking took it with me. I know that at 5,000 makes me an asshole, and I don't think I'd make the same choices were I able to do it over. But I still don't regret taking that $1,000 couch with me. It's still in my living room a decade later. Not sorry. ETA, since this has popped up a few times, she took me in because she needed a roommate and help with childcare. I took her up on it for some company to distract from my grief. We agreed to split bills 40-60 since I was gonna help with childcare. Found out that I was the one paying closer to 60. When I asked her what 50 would be for my last month, she gets no points for taking me in. I will still cancel your reservations. I posted here a while ago about receiving text updates for reservations I didn't make: fitness classes, apartment tours, dinner reservations in cities I don't live. After tracking down an email, I asked the person to stop using my number but never received a reply. I finally canceled a reservation for 6 in Manhattan. The alerts stopped. The person seemed to get the hint, or so I thought. This morning I wake up and have a text about a table for 3 in New York this upcoming Monday night. Just set a Monday afternoon reminder to cancel it. My classmate touched my boobs. I was minding my own business going to the classroom when I saw my classmates having fun and walking towards me. One of them touched my boobs and then they laughed thinking it was funny. She think we're best friend or something. She did it to me twice. The first time was in the classroom. We were talking, then just randomly touched them. She said they're soft and big and also asked me if I want to touch her, but I said no. At first I laughed even though I was so uncomfortable with it and I didn't want to make it a big deal. The second time was she was with her friends and I was literally walking with someone, but for them, it's just fun cause they definitely do it with each other. I already told to her to stop. I just hope she don't do it again. I don't want to tell anyone about this though cause I know people would think I'm overreacting, but I'm just gonna leave it on here. AITA for making my mom leave my house after calling my daughter unladylike. I 40F have a daughter 13F who isn't exactly a tomboy, but does boy activities. I'm saying boy activities for the sake of this post. And my mom 63F is pretty old-fashioned. X200B my daughter isn't doing a sport right now, but she did a winter sport and a fall sport. Whenever my mom saw her coming back from basketball all sweaty and stuff, she would scrunch her face. She would tell me her being sweaty and nasty isn't a good image, but she wasn't saying that to my daughter according to her and my daughter, so I didn't make too much of it. X200B on Saturday, my husband, daughter, son and I went to a semi-formal Sweet 16. My daughter wore a really nice green dress, but my mom's issue? My daughter doesn't wear makeup, so she wasn't wearing any. Upon noticing, she said, "Missy, you are very unladylike," and before she could sit down, I told her to get on her phone and call someone because she sure as hell wasn't staying here. After saying that, my brother came and picked her up. X200B now I wonder whether I overreacted because my daughter didn't even seem to care and thinking I should have let this slide. AITA Redditors? AITA for telling my daughter she is living outside of her means and I am not bailing her out with her credit card debt. My daughter is 24 and living on her own. She has a job that supports her well, but she has lived beyond her means. I have told her so many times to cut back and even offered to help make a budgeting plan. Every time she tells me she knows what she is doing. I got a call from her and she has $3,000 in credit card debt and was panicking since she didn't have enough to make the minimum payment. She asked me to lend her the money to bail her out. I told her I want to see her transactions of the credit card. I was going to help her if she was doing essential purchases. She wasn't. It mostly consisted on Amazon shopping, eating out, and clothes stores. I told her I will not bail her out of that debt since she is living beyond her means. I also brought up that she is planning a vacation that she can afford. Instead, I told her that I will help her make a budget and it will suck for a few months, but we probably fix her debt. She got pissed at me and this started an argument. I won't bail her out and she thinks I am a huge jerk. I told her it's her own fault for living outside of her means and a few sandwiches would drastically cut down on what she spends. AITA. Husband bought tickets to see his favorite band for my 30th birthday. I turned 30 in June. I almost never do anything for my birthday. The last time I tried, my grandparents let me use their timeshare for a few days and I ended up getting COVID. Long story short, basically since I turned 29 I've been telling my husband I wanted to do something sort of special for my 30th birthday. I requested the time off work which was just granted this week, so I was just waiting for that to start planning and paying for things. Even though my husband knew this, he dropped $400 on concert tickets to see his favorite band the day before my birthday and in the middle of the week off I had requested. I told him I'm a bit upset and I felt he was being selfish by buying the tickets during the week I was trying to plan a vacation for us for my birthday without ever talking to me about it. The band in question is also coming to a town 2.5 hours away in August, but he thought it would be a good surprise and that I should be grateful he wanted to share this experience with me. I just feel a bit hurt and my husband says I'm being unreasonable. So I have to ask, people of Reddit, AITA? My girlfriend gave birth to my child today. It is my 24th birthday and I learned about it 2 hours ago. This is insane. My girlfriend was pregnant and she did not know anything. She said to me she did not want to tell me since when she picked up the signs it was already too late 2-3 weeks ago. The doctor couldn't believe too. She was on a pill, she was working just as usual. No kicks or pains, was planning to break up with me first so I would not have to deal with this. I just got a message before I went to sleep I'm at the hospital and they are preparing me to give birth. Sorry for not telling you, you do not have to come. When I went to the hospital the doctor comes out and tells me I am going to do my best to save the child. An hour late I see my child coming out of the room. I saw my life passing in front of my eyes. My child was born on my birthday with a 401 chance leap year. I am not ready. Nobody else knows, am lost right now. We are not in an ideal situation for raising a child financially and mentally. She does not want it, but I do not think I will be able to sleep at night knowing I left my child. But I don't know if I can do this. I don't make enough to support a kid, but then I'm thinking that there has to be a way. The quote from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse runs into my mind and Luke watched the movie 2 days ago. How will I know I'm ready? You won. It's a leap of faith. I try to stay calm. I still can't believe it. About a year ago a friend of mine said something very disturbing and I haven't hung out with him since. IF20 had just gotten a boyfriend that summer. At the time I was 19, and I was ecstatic. Unfortunately this resulted in a few of my male friends to become very distant and it clicked that my boyfriend had been right when he said that they liked me. Anyways, I was invited to a friend's birthday party. He's one of the guys that actually seemed to genuinely like me as a friend. So I went. Though I was one of the 2 other girls there, as others unfortunately couldn't come, including my best friend at the time, but I didn't care much. I can hang out with both genders just fine. I also knew someone else there, let's call him Joe M19, and had met another one, let's call him JM20. Joe and I have hung out, just the 2 of us, on several occasions. We always just talked or played video games and he'd never done anything specific to indicate he liked me. Well, I hate him. I was at a party once and he was there. He's a loser. He sat alone most of the night and me, being the friendly girl I am, decided to try and include him. Bad move. All night he followed me even when I tried to leave and he kept trying to ask me if we should have sex in a bush. He's disgusting, but I could go on and on about that night. At this party, Jay, being the immature man baby he is, wanted to play truth or dare, which basically meant telling us girls that we should be fine with getting groped. I immediately said that I didn't want that at all and he called me boring and kept pestering me for a valid answer as to why I didn't want to participate. So me, being a woman and apparently that means my no isn't good enough, had to let it be known that I also had a boyfriend and I felt as if that would be highly inappropriate. Cue Joe lifting his head. By this point Joe was tipsy and later throughout the night I ended up sitting next to him in the couch and he began asking me if it was true that I had a boyfriend, and I confirmed it, and it's like something inside him malfunctioned. He asked me why I was dating him and not, for example, someone like himself, in an awkward slur. This made me feel weird, so I tried to explain to him that I liked my boyfriend because he was funny, made me happy, and because he was him, and I didn't like someone like Joe because Joe wasn't him. The conversation was longer than that, and it was a lot of confusion about why I was dating this guy. Once the conversation was over, he begins to tell me that he sometimes has these intrusive thoughts where, for example, he'll see a woman in a bus stop and will want to drag her home by her hair all the way up to his sister's room and do with her whatever he wants. Mind you, when I was at his place, we'd almost always hang out in his sister's room as she had moved out. I wasn't sure what to say, and I also felt weird that this was the first thing he decided to share with me. After our conversation about my boyfriend that had gotten him frustrated, and I couldn't help but feel as if he was insinuating something. It creeped me out immensely because it almost felt like he was talking about me indirectly, so I tried to ask if he felt this way about people he knew too, but I don't think I got a coherent answer. I may be reading too much into it. It could have just been an unfortunate mix of coincidence and alcohol, but regardless, I told my boyfriend, and he told me that I could not hang out with that guy ever again, not alone at least. Ever since that night, whenever it's brought up, me and my boyfriend kind of discuss what was meant by it. Joe hadn't shown any signs of wanting to hurt me. He's always been a very quiet guy, easy enough to hang out with outside of the fact that he was always so silent, and it felt like I had to talk more. So perhaps I'm reading too much into it and he was just telling me about unfortunate intrusive thoughts. But I was definitely weird, and I don't want to take my chances. He still tries to hang out with me, but I avoid him like the plague. Though I have begun to kind of feel bad about that. Not because it's him, but because I'm not the type of person to ignore someone and act so cold, but I feel as if it's necessary. Edit: I forgot to mention that he told me the thought didn't scare him, and I feel like if it was an intrusive thought, it should scare you, make you uncomfortable. That's why they're intrusive, right? Also forgot to mention that it's been pretty much confirmed that he was into me or in love with me from a common friend of ours, and also just based on his reaction to me having a boyfriend. So I feel even more as if I should just stay away from him. He reached out last a few weeks ago, but I said I was busy. AITA for correcting the lie. My half-siblings told that my dad used to be their stepdad and he dumped them into foster care once our mom died. So I 27 meters have 3 younger half-siblings, 24F, 22 meters and 21 meters. We're maternal half-siblings and I have a different dad to them. Their dad was dating my mom for several years, but they never got married, so he wasn't legally ever my stepdad, but I guess he would kind of get the title since he lived with my mom and I lived with her half the time. He was never interested in me and I was never interested in him. He used to creep me out, so I don't really think of him like that, but technically their dad would have been my step. Mine was never anything to them. When my mom was pregnant with the youngest, their dad was arrested and he went to prison. He was briefly released 8 years later, but ended up going back to prison. He wasn't a good guy and has a long list of convictions now. I was 8 when mom died. I was living with my dad full-time when she died. She was not taking good care of me and was taking her anger about her boyfriend's release out on me through a lot of yelling and talking to me like shit. When mom died, a social worker got involved and my half-siblings were removed. They had no biological family willing to take them, and the social worker asked my dad if he would consider a kinship care agreement so they could be raised alongside me. My dad said that was not something he would be interested in, and so my half-siblings were placed in foster care. My dad did agree to some visits. We had one visit every 2 months for years. The visits were never easy because my half-siblings would ask to move in with my dad and me, and they would ask why my dad didn't visit and why couldn't they be with him instead so we could live together. They were separated most of the time in foster care and would put that on me and my dad as well. I refused the visits once I turned 16. I hadn't wanted them for a while, but it was more annoying than anything to have to repeat the same conversation every 2 months. My dad let me make the decision because he really had to drag me there for most of the visits anyway. We had no contact for years, and then just over 2 years ago they reached out to me and said they wanted a relationship again. I told them I didn't and they said they wouldn't mention my dad again. So I agreed and things were going alright. Not having to have that fight with them made it easier to care. But then a few weeks ago I found out at my half-brother's 21st birthday party that they have been lying to people, claiming my dad was their stepdad and he dumped them in foster care as soon as mom died. They apparently knew most people wouldn't think he was wrong if he was just my dad. They never knew, so they spun a story. I told people the truth when it came up, and afterward I told my half-siblings that I was so done with them and that their obsession with my dad taking them in is what drove me crazy before. I told them he wasn't there anything, and lying was not the way to win me over. They accused me of ruining their lives by exposing their lies. AITA. Mom whines about me giving bubblegum cigars to my cousin's wife and her kids. My dad gets annoyed with her, refuses to allow his employer program to give away desks and chairs to her church mentoring program. When I was 19, my sister had her first child. At the time, I was still living at home while working part-time and attending school at a local community college. My maternal grandmother, now deceased, lived next door, and there is a guest house in her yard that she rented out. My cousin had gotten married a couple of years before, and his wife had 2 sons from a previous marriage. They moved into the guest house while looking for a home to buy an area. My sister lived 2.5 hours away, and my parents went to stay with her and her husband when the due date was nearing. My sister's son was born on Tuesday. I went to a store and bought a few boxes of those It's a Boy bubble gum cigars. Friday rolled around and went over to my grandmother's house to show pictures of my nephew that my parents had emailed. My cousin, his wife, and her kids were having dinner with my grandma. I showed them the pics and I gave them all bubble gum cigars. The next day I went to the city. My sister and her husband were living in. I took the boxes of bubble gum cigars over. My mom noticed that one box had been opened, and I mentioned giving cigars to my grandma, cousin's wife, and her kids. My mom got pissy and said that I shouldn't have given bubble gum cigars to my cousin's stepkids because they aren't family. Her words. My dad heard this and laid into her and said that my cousin's stepkids are family and need to feel welcomed. He also mentioned that since I paid for the bubble gum cigars, I should have some say in who receives them. My dad was working in the mining industry back then, and the company he worked for had a program in which older office desks and chairs would be donated to non-profit places. Non-profit places like animal shelters, homeless shelters, group homes for disabled people, churches, free clinics, etc. In years prior, he had been able to get desks donated to the church we attended. A few months after my mom's wine fest over bubble gum, my dad's employer gave him decision-making power in where to donate desks and chairs. My mom immediately suggested a mentoring program at the church that was held in the parish center on weekends. My mom volunteered with that program. My dad refused and said that he was annoyed with the comments she made about my cousin's stepkids and that he wasn't going to help out her mentoring program. She of course whined about it. My dad's comment was that she needed to actually have a Christian attitude, which includes making relative stepkids feel welcomed. My ex got what he deserved 3 years later. So 3 years ago, my fiancé, who I was with for about 10 years, the pandemic postponed our wedding, and with that I found out he had been cheating on me for quite a while. I even cooked dinner for the chick he left me for. That's a whole other story. So anyways, I am a chef, and one day I drove one of the line cooks home. Coincidentally, he actually lives into the apartment next to my ex that he moved to once I kicked him out. This line cook is young and makes rap music, stays up till all hours of the night, and is just generally a bad neighbor. So I told him, hey, my ex lives in you building. If you ever see him, tell him he's trash. Well, it's been like 2 years since I said that, and this weekend I guess the cook was a bit loud and my ex went over, kicked his door, then proceeded to hide behind the fire escape and cheap shot him when he came out. Well, that's the only punch he got in. The line cook just went nuts on his face. Halfway through the altercation he realized it was my ex, so he proceeded to tell him how trash of a person he was for doing what he did to me. I feel bad that it happened to my coworker, but it just instilled how much of a trash human he was most of the time. Petty revenge 2 years later. So since breaking up with my ex-fiancé, I have been living with his grandparents because they asked me to stay and take care of them a little with my dog, who has helped them smile and live longer. What they say about my dog? Well, some of you guys might know he cheated on me. The girl broke up with him. He got mad that I started dating before our year breakup. Then he started dating a friend of mine, and I found out that he proposed to her, probably him thinking I will say do something, so I ended up blocking both because I don't want anything, because I'm moving on to be a better person with my own boyfriend and family. Well, recently I was talking to the grandma and she showed me an updated pictures of my ex's family, and I didn't care seeing them saying they're nice, just to be nice. Then we started talking about my ex's wedding and how it's coming up, and here's the kicker: they are getting married on the date I said when I was engaged to the same guy. Copycat lol. Just a 2-year difference. Me: Grandma, are you going to JJ's wedding? You should. GMA: no, not wanting to. Me: why? He's your grandson, you should go. I'll be here, everything will be fine. GMA: no, I don't want to, for one major reason. Me: and that would be? GMA: he cheated on you, then is marrying your friend. I don't see that in any way, or be a part of it. He hurt you so much, so I will show him how I can do the same. Me: but he's still your grandson, you should go. GMA: nope. You're more of a grandkid than he has. I've waited 2 years to get back at him for what he did to you, and this is it. Me: okay. Then I walked away downstairs and began laughing. Sometimes the most petty people are your own grandparents, and they do it so much worse. AITA: for roaming around naked in my house. My roommate 20M and me 20M have been sharing a home since last 2 months. 3 days ago, he told me that he is leaving to see his family and would be back in a week. I had the whole house to myself for a week. Today, I walked out of the shower to the kitchen naked to check on the cake I was baking. My roommate suddenly barged in while I was in the kitchen with my PP out. Things have got very awkward between us since then. He is saying I shouldn't roam around the house naked. I am saying that he should have told me that he is coming earlier. Who's at fault here? AITA for turning my cousin gay and then everyone against each other. I-20F started a huge misunderstanding in my family over something that happened years ago. It all started 5 years ago when I was 15 and was staying in the countryside with my aunt and her son for summer break. For context, my aunt hates gay people, not just that it is a sin in our religion, but being homophobic was also her entire personality. And it wasn't just her, everyone in that place despised gay people. Now at that time, I had a GF, let's call her April. April was around my age and also came from homophobic parents. And surprise surprise, my cousin, who was 18 then, let's call him Sam, also had a BF. Sam and I never told anyone about our relationships. However, as teenagers, we wanted to spend time with our partners, but couldn't do that due to the homophobia, so we decided to troll everyone. I pretended that Sam's BF was my BF, and he pretending that April was his GF. Everyone believed this, so whenever I was with April outside, I would be like, yo, that's my cousin's girl. The best part was that when one of our partners stayed over, they ended up sharing rooms with the person they were actually dating. For example, if I brought my BF home and he stayed the night, my aunt would make him share rooms with Sam. Likewise, whenever Sam brought April home, she would be in my room. Genius, I know. And nobody figured it out until 2 days ago. My aunt called me and unleashed a barrage of insults. She used every slur you could ever out. Sam invited her to his wedding. He was marrying that same guy from 5 years ago. She accused me of turning her God-loving Christian son into a sinful man. This couldn't be my fault cause Sam and his BF were already together before I arrived. Anyways, she thinks I'm the one who turned her son gay, that it is because of me that Sam and his BF did sleep together, and then they became gay? I don't understand too, I'm sorry. After she hung up I started getting calls from my relatives, all of them insulted me. They blocked me on after that. They called my mom and insulted her as well. My mom was confused as to what was going on. She asked me what happened. I ended up telling her everything. I've never told her how I spent that summer before this. The thing that she focused on was that back when I was pretending that Sam's BF was my BF. He was 19 and I was 15. My mom lost it when she found out that my aunt was actually okay with me dating someone that was way older than me when I was 15. And my aunt didn't even bother to call and tell her that. My mom started calling my relatives and then screaming at them. Some of them took my aunt's side and some my mom's side, and are now arguing with each other through the phone as I am writing this down. Sam called and apologized for the way his mom said that she is crazy and that he had cut her off after what happened. So AITA for not going to my Sil's wedding since she went full pick me at my wedding. I am an Indian woman who got married a couple years back and I have a Sil who I thought would be like a sister to me, but as I soon discovered, was insanely jealous of me. The whole time during my engagement, she kept on coming on front of me to get her pictures taken. On the wedding, she was upset because no one was paying attention to her. Yes, she literally said that out loud. At the reception, she tried to take the knife from me to cut our reception cake. After that, a series of unfortunate events from her end kept on taking place. She is the same age as I am. 8 months after the wedding, my husband and I moved to a different city after the lockdown was over. We have since been happy. We don't talk to her. My husband did not like her since the start, and, of course, her attitude towards me pissed him off even more. My in-laws are now calling us to not just attend, but also help financially in her wedding. They are not ready to even acknowledge that she made mistakes, neither is she ready to apologize. My husband has decided that we are now not going to her wedding, but I am just worried about my husband. He does not seem sad or anything. If anything, I've noticed he's more relaxed after informing them of our decision, but I keep on stressing about what if he is secretly sad about not being able to support his family. AITA for supporting him to not go and to not go myself. Manager payback. My manager has a pattern of making a really big deal of minor errors I make. The thing is that he only brings up any errors just after I achieve something and get praise from his boss, our director. For example, I scored a $3 million grant for the project I run. The next day he tells me that the template is used for a report was the wrong one and that our director and his assistant are really disappointed. Today he said that the director and marketing manager were really angry, all because I contacted marketing to let them know all some key information from a council meeting that I ran last night, which went very well. He told me that it's inappropriate for me to contact them because it's above my level even though it's about the project I am managing. Anyway, my petty revenge plays into a few things, especially his unhealthy obsession with looking good in front of other manager and directors. I went to each of the people he said were upset by my actions and I apologized profusely. I said that my manager said they were really upset with what I had done and I am deeply sorry for any offense I have caused. I figured that if he was telling the truth, I should apologize, But if he is lying, I just exposed him to the people he cares about most. Long story short, they were initially confused and then confirmed that they have no issues. My favorite part is imagining one of them confronting him about it. How would he respond? Would he double down on the lie? Probably. Which is why one of my colleagues who has received the same treatment used my strategy: lie your way out of that, you prick. AITA for blowing up on my husband's friend after her wife died. My 36F husband Ian, 44 meters, is close friends with a woman named Jenna. They've been friends for a long time, before Ian and I got together, so I know her fairly well too, but we really have nothing in common and we're not exactly friends. Jenna's wife Laura very sadly and somewhat suddenly passed in early March. She was terminally ill but responding to treatment very well and was expected to survive another 5 years. She's been leaning on Ian heavily for support, which I understand, but she's been at our house every single day since, even sleeping in our guest room most nights because she doesn't want to be home alone, which would be okay, except she is getting more passive-aggressive towards me and weirdly territorial of Ian. I've reminded myself that I don't think I could stand to see a happy couple for months if I lost Ian, and to be patient. It's not personal. My birthday was on Sunday. I got home Saturday after a morning out and Jenna was there. I was making small talk when I asked Ian what time he made dinner reservations for the next day. Jenna inserted herself right here and asked Ian if he was going to be out the next day, and he said yes. She started panicking and saying that he couldn't, and she wasn't ready to spend an evening alone. I was going to tell her that she could still hang out here while we gone, and she looked at me and said, "Don't you have any fucking friends you can go with?" And I just blew DF up. "Don't you have any other fucking friends you can go bother?" And so on. She called me selfish for monopolizing my husband, and I had enough and told her to get the fuck out of my house and not to come back, ever. Ian had been trying to calm things down between us, but it spiraled out of control fast, and he ended up escorting Jenna out and telling her that he'd come visit her in a few days, but he would be backing my decision because of how she spoke to me. I was happy for his support and still am, but it's been a few days and I just feel bad all around about it. I should have been more understanding of her, but I also feel like she should treat me more respectfully, and I'm not really sure if I overreacted. AITA for confronting my Bill for allowing his daughter to get so out of shape she can't even walk a half mile without needing a rest break. My Bill, husband's brother, is a single father to my niece Cindy. For some context, I've always made it a point to encourage my kids to be active and have a good relationship with exercise. Bill isn't the same way with Cindy. My daughter bought Cindy a pair of skates for her birthday so they could go together, but Cindy tried once, fell too much and lost interest. She mostly likes to play video games at home, and spends a lot of time in chat rooms. And it's fine to have hobbies like that, don't get me wrong, but here's the problem: when we, the girls, were out shopping a few weeks ago, we were going to take a break and grab lunch at a cafe in the shopping center. It was half-mile walk on a gorgeous spring day, and Cindy couldn't do it. She needed to sit down and take a break. I did not make a big deal out of it too. Cindy and we just hung out with her until she was rested. I pulled Bill aside after and told him what happened. He didn't see the issue. I told him that she's only 14. She shouldn't have any trouble walking, that I'm worried she's going to develop health issues or it's going to get worse. He got very defensive and accused me of saying he's a bad parent. I told him no, he's not a bad parent, but that it's alarming that his daughter can't walk a half mile, and that she might need to see a doctor. He got even angrier and said that I was overstepping and to back off. I put up my hands and just said, "Okay, I won't say anything more," and left. I know how it feels to have your parenting criticized, so I understand why he got defensive. But was I truly so out of line to express concern for my niece? I wasn't talking about forcing her into after-school sports and running laps. That's a great way to make a kid hate exercise, but I fear for things getting worse and her not being able to climb stairs or something in the future. Edit: there seems to be some confusion and a few people have made comments that have made me a little confused. Cindy isn't overweight at all. AITA for not returning money my ex-husband sent to me mistakenly. A few days ago my ex-husband mistakenly transferred 2 payments of $8,700 and $9,275. He did this at around 7:40 a.m. in the morning and I didn't notice because I worked night shift and was getting ready for bed. So my phone was charging on the nightstand. At the same time my 4 children were at my parents', and so I planned to sleep away half the day. I guess he realized his mistake around 8:30 a.m. and by then I was dead asleep. I woke up at around 4 p.m. to at least 100 missed calls and maybe 150 texts asking and begging me to send him back the money. My initially thoughts were to send it back, but then I remember he owed main 12000 and hasn't paid me back since I lent it to him 4 years ago, and he's had a million excuses why he can't pay me back, and yet I always see him living it up. I kept the amount he owed me and returned only $5,975 and told him I deducted his debt. Since then I've had him call me every book in the name because this was apparently money he was saving to buy his girlfriend engagement ring. the engagement venue etc. So according to him he had to tell her. This then led to it ruining the surprise engagement he planned for the next weekend. His girlfriend has been bad-mouthing me and it has caused a bit of shitstorm with me having to shut down my social media, and even his parents, who I had a cordial relationship, has been impacted by it. I discussed the situation with a friend and colleague and it was overheard by another colleague, and he has called what I did a dickhead move, and I guess he shared it with a couple of other people, and now I'm not too sure anymore on whether I am being an asshole or not. Is this asshole move? Edit: the money was loaned to him after our divorce. We've been divorced for 7 years and I loaned him the money 4 years ago after he had lost his job and fell behind on bills and his rent. This has nothing to do with his child support payments, of which he is also behind on, and that's being handled by family court. There are texts of him asking for a loan and it included a repayment plan and time, but he never stuck to it. So there's a legal trail if he ever decided to involve the law, but I seriously doubt he would, because it would cost way more to sue me and I think I would have won in court since I only deducted his debt to me. Yes, he is the father of our 4 kids. Edit: 2 Yes, I could have sued him for the debt, but it would have cost me way more to hire a lawyer. Suing someone isn't cheap. Lawyers cost real money and a lawsuit takes real time. AITA: for telling my dad if I don't like his GF my daughter isn't going near his home. Hi, so context: my parents just got divorced and have started dating other people. I've met my mom's current boyfriend and get along so well with him, so he's met my daughter and been round my house. This man has no kids and has met my sisters and has openly said he's there to be their friend, not their dad. My dad's new girlfriend has kids and it's already caused issues, as I'm getting married soon and have said I am to meet the girlfriend before my wedding. If I like her she can attend, if not she isn't to come. My dad wasn't happy with this but didn't press it. However, he asked that if I like her can her kids come. I said absolutely not. I got back, but technically they be siblings, that's fine, but if I don't like them and not going to force a relationship with them I'll be civil, but that's it. Same with the girlfriend. I have also said if I don't like them my kid won't be staying around as if she is there, because I'm not comfortable with that. And if I haven't met her she isn't to be in the house with my kid either, as she is a complete stranger. My dad says I'm overreacting and being silly about it, all as if things go well she will be family regardless. I think my thoughts are perfectly rational, but he seems to think I'm being an eye about it. I did speak to my mom and my partner about this, but they are definitely biased, so I'd like to know if I am the eye in the situation. Edit: my dad cheated on my mom. We have no idea who with though, but are aware there was an affair with another woman. This is why I blew up on him when he brought up the girlfriend. My dad also won't let me meet this woman either. I have asked to meet her before this post and he wasn't comfortable with that. AITA: for telling my mill that I can spoil my kids if I want. I 33F spoil my kids with things I never got from my childhood, so whenever they want something they want something, they get it, but I don't just give it up easily. They have to work for the things they want. Don't want them going around expecting people to give them everything just because. My mill 67F has a problem with me spoiling my kids and said that why won't know life the way she knew life. She calls them spoiled brats. I checked her about the name calling because they're not spoiled brats. If they don't get something they won't throw a tantrum, but say they understand, so they understand the value of things. But my mill was raised differently, so she thinks kids shouldn't be spoiled. I don't see anything wrong with spoiling your child because sometimes that's our love language. My mill was even upset when I brought my daughter 13F a MacBook and said all this technology will ruin her brain. I can agree the internet can destroy your brain, but it's just a laptop. When my husband gifted our 6-year-old a pet fish, she was upset. I really don't know what I'm doing wrong. I told her I can spoil my kids if I want to, and to mind her business because it's getting ridiculous at this point. Edited: just woke. Sorry. My kids are very respectful to me and everyone around them. They're responsible for their age. My 6-year-old is very mature and has been wishing for a fish since she was 3. Now she got it and takes care of it every day. My daughter 13 loves her laptop and keeps thanking me. She uses it to play games and do her work. My husband and I got tired of his mother's mess and blocked her. She is too toxic to be around my kids. AITA: for using TS8 pre-check while my girlfriend went through the regular line. So I 31M and my girlfriend 28F recently went on a vacation to Paris from NYC. Before the trip, I mentioned to her that I would pay for the entire trip if she applied for global entry, which includes TS8 pre-check. I thought this would be a great way for us both to avoid long lines at TSA. I even started the application for her, and all she had to do was finish it. However, she didn't complete the application, and I ended up paying for the whole trip anyway because I was planning to do so regardless. I just wanted to give her an incentive to apply for global entry. When the day of travel arrived, I went through the TSA pre-check line, and she had to go through the regular line. For the beginning part of our trip, she was mad at me for this. AITA: for using TS8 pre-check while my girlfriend went through the regular line, even though I had offered her an incentive to apply for global entry. My mom made me spread the ashes of my rapist. I was raped by a man in his 50s from 12-16. He was my mom's boyfriend. I stayed with my mom on the weekends, and she knew this was happening to me. When I got a boyfriend at 16 and was physically repulsed from him trying to hold my hand, everything came out. I told my dad everything, and police were involved. My dad has never been the same since this came out, and I know he blames himself. My rapist was found guilty but was only sentenced to 5 years. He served 4 of the 5. He was a free man when I was 20. And my mom went back to him. His health declined rapidly after that and my mom became his caretaker. I tried to visit her one day and he chased me out of their trailer and he called me a whore. A year after that he died from his health complications. My mom told me she wanted to meet with me. At this time I did not know he had died. When she told me he died, I felt immediate relief, but also, my stomach dropped because I realized my mom was carrying a small pot. It took me a second to realize it was a small urn of his ashes. She told me we needed to spread them. I told her I wanted to go and I didn't want anything to do with it. She cried and tried everything to make me feel guilt over it. She told me that I was a promiscuous child and I was partially to blame for turning a good man in. To get her to stop and take me home, I spread his ashes. That was 10 years ago and I still think about it. I wish this was rage bait or some made up crap, but no, this is my life. His name was Kevin and he was an evil, sick, vile person. I will never be the same. Road rage in his driveway. I commute to work on my bike and ride through a lot of neighborhoods en route. I saw someone a few houses ahead pulling out of his driveway way too fast and gestured to slow down and chill out. He then road raged next to me for a few blocks, yelling obscenities and honking his horn and aggressively following me. I went back a few nights later and put a small pebble in the cap of his tire valve, so it would slowly leak, leaving the dumb fuck with a flat tire the next morning. Don't be a road raging asshole while pulling out of your own driveway. Spam email for CL scammer. I bought a house a few years ago and was very excited as this was my first home purchase and I had found the perfect property for me. However, just a few weeks after closing I started to get people coming up to look at the house that was being advertised for rent on Craigslist. At first I thought it would die down, and I reported the ads on CL. They were taken down and everything seemed fine. Then I left town for a family vacation and started getting people on my Ring camera who were coming by again to look at the house for rent. I found out this is a common scam that is rampant on Craigslist, and there is really not much you can do about it. X200B. At this point I went online and found the listings again. I texted the number and started talking with the person who was putting up the fake listings. They had photos from the recent listing and were using a lot of the same verbiage from online postings when the house was being sold. After talking with them for a little bit pretending to be an interested party, I told them that I was the owner of the house and they should immediately stop posting my house online and scamming people. They were asking for an application fee, then telling potential renters they were out of town and would mail them the key after receiving the first month's rent via Cash App. Honestly, I don't know how so many people fell for this obvious scam. The person was not interested in stopping posting my house online and instead accused me of scamming them. Lol. It must have been quite an easy way for them to make money honestly, and I was not able to sleuth anything from the phone numbers, Cash App names, or email addresses they were giving out. X200B. This continued for months. I would check CL every day and report the fake listings that would pop up every few days or weeks. I ended up contacting all the sites that had my home listed with pictures and having them taken down, as well as the information about the home. It was incredibly unnerving to have people traipsing through my property and up onto my front porch at random times of the day. I put up a sign on the front door explaining the situation, as many times I was not home when people would come up and look in my windows. I even put up large signs in my yard explaining the house was not for rent and to not come up on the property. I filed a police report. I was approached by someone else who had been dealing with something similar and offered to help me figure out who this person was. Again, that road led nowhere and I was getting anxiety every time a Ring notification popped up on my phone. I also felt terrible for all the people who were just trying to find housing in my area, thinking my little house was a good deal. This person had it listed far under what it would be for a rental. X200B. After maybe 6-8 months I was tired of all of it. I didn't want anyone else to give this person money or their information. I was sick of having random people come up onto my property all the time, and I was annoyed at this person who continued to taunt me online using my own home. X200B. So I thought, the only way to fight this annoyance is with an annoyance of my own. The next time I found the listing on Craigslist, I again acted like an interested buyer. I got the scammer's email address and went back and forth filling out a fake application, telling them I would wire them the money, the works. Instead, I took this email address and signed it up for every daily email newsletter I could find. If they wanted to remain anonymous, I would spam them until they left me alone. I signed them up for daily religious affirmation and newsletters, multiple political party newsletters, porn websites, non-profit websites, clothing, many as I could possibly find. And, when I found the house again on Craigslist the next week, I did the same thing. I knew they were changing their email address and phone number every time, so I'd have to spam everyone until they stopped. X200B I vowed to do this every single week until they were so annoyed they stopped posting my house. After doing this 2-3 times, the postings stopped. It's been a couple of years and I haven't had any issues since. I sometimes go online and see obvious scam posters and always report them. The classic revenge. So this took place over the course of summer of 2020 to summer of 2021. I was renting a 2-bed apt even though I lived alone. I had a couple of people who needed a place to stay as their families had kicked them out, so I told them they could live with me. The main person this post is about is my roommate, who I'll call Jackass. Now Jackass was addicted to gaming weed. All he'd do all day was smoke all my weed, eat all my food while playing COD when he wasn't fighting with his GF, dragging me into it to mediate. Jackass also liked to beat on me as he thought it made him big. Bad impressed all our friends while our friends just thought he was a tool. Now Jackass's constant fighting, weed smoking got me in trouble with the property management, eventually got me kicked out. He also completely trashed the place as he refused to ever get off his ass clean up after himself. Flash forward to summer of 2021, he asked me if his sister could come stay as she was the victim of domestic violence, needed a safe place to go to get away from her abuser. I said sure, so she came to stay. Flash forward a few days, with encouragement from my friends I kicked Jackass his GF out of my house but told his sister she could stay as she wasn't causing trouble. A couple days later I was talking with a sister in my room when she started getting flirty. One thing led to another, long story short I fucked her. Next time I saw Jackass he was trying to weasel his way back into my good graces. You better believe I was bragging in explicit detail about everything I did to with his sister. It about made him vomit.